Welcome back, pod people. My guests today are Victoria and Aaron Fradkin, who are the writers, and Aaron is the director, of Beezel, which is a really interesting movie that I had a lot of fun with that is a little difficult for me to describe just because the structure is a bit unusual. That on its simplest level, it's a haunted house, like there's a creepy witch movie, but it does interesting things with like how many stories it's telling and the existence or lack thereof or changing of the protagonists. It's almost but not quite like an anthology film with several short films together, but they sort of lead naturally into each other, and it's not a like three things that weave back and forth as much as one right after the other. It's really an unusual structure for a feature film. And so I'm curious, could you two tell me a bit about how you came up with that sort of structure rather than a more traditional single through line?
Well, how much time do you have? It started
about an hour.
It really started in 1994 when I moved into this house with my parents when I was 6 years old.
Okay.
This house, which is the house that we shot in, was absolutely terrifying. I mean, it is a long single-story stone house in New England with a basement that lived below my childhood bedroom, and connected to the basement is a creaky wooden crawl space door that leads to this underground tunnel that extends the length of the house. So imagine growing up there. Imagine trying to fall asleep as a 6-year-old every single night, hearing creaks and cracks and noises of the boiler downstairs, hearing tapping noises on the crawl space, seeing shadows in the dark, hallway that was lit only by the nightlight that my mom got me. That's really where a lot of this started. And so when we wrote the film, it was very easy to just go back to my childhood and recall all of these memories. Furthermore, we knew the house like the back of our hands. So we were inspired by a lot of what the house had to offer, which was this, laundry chute that went downstairs to the basement, the crawl space underneath the house in between the walls. We were able to pull from all of that and include it in the story.
And I think speaking to your point about the structure of the film, that was also a really interesting production detail as well. We started out, we always knew based on his terrifying childhood, your lovely childhood in a terrifying house. So we had this story about a night nurse who was going to be coming in and taking care of this older woman. And that felt like the right story to jump over there and start filming. And once we got there, we just, I remember having this exact thought as we wrapped and we were leaving. Again, this was just one short segment of what we thought would be an anthology film. I left and I thought, this house has more to say. There's definitely more here at this house. So once we got back, Aaron edited that short. We got some feedback, test audience, friends and peers, and we just knew that there was more for this house. So why not tell a story about not just one person who's experiencing this haunted house, but the generation before and the generation after. So now it's like you've moved into a haunted house. You don't even know what the people before you were like and what they had to go through. We, the audience, know. And now we get to live in this tension of this newcomer coming to this terrifying house and experiencing the witch below.
That's great. Yeah, you've already answered some of the things I was going to ask as follow-up questions, which were like, which came first, the idea or access to this shooting location? And was this really just one house, or did you stitch together a bunch of different locations? So that's amazing, having access to that kind of resource and the inspiration that it gives you. That's really cool. Yeah, so the section of the film that you just described with the caretaker is the second out of 3 sections of the film. And you said it's the section you filmed first. What order did you film the other 2 in?
Well, we shot the caretaker first, like Victoria said, and we went back to LA. I cut it together. And after showing everybody, we decided that we wanted to write what happened before, what happened after. And so we did. We just wrote both the first act and the third act together. We went back to Massachusetts And we began shooting the final act, the end of the film first, and then we wrapped the movie shooting the first act. So it was completely out of order, middle, final, and then end.
Wild.
Yeah. But then, and that was partly for just practical reasons on set as well. I was acting in the final segment. I was also producing the film. So, you know, I had requested an Aaron, he was very kind to give this to me, that my segment with my acting happens pretty much as soon as we arrive. So that then for all these other things, we're going to have children on set a lot, you know, I need to really like have my full producer hat on. I can't be 1 foot in, 1 foot over there. Then I could just fully focus on producing after my segment wrapped. So it was really a little bit of a necessity for me, and very, very welcome.
Yeah, I know most movies are not shot in you know, the order of the scenes that we end up watching them in. But it's interesting to me to see the sections, that the 3 acts of the movie split up like that. I've never heard of a movie being filmed that way before. That's really cool. This movie reminded me a lot of a bunch of other movies that I've seen before. The first section reminds me of Creep, the American Creep, not the British Creep. And the film as a whole reminded me of Barbarian. And I'm curious, were there specific films that you found as inspirational, or was all the inspiration coming from the location itself?
I definitely am a big fan, and have always been a big fan of Mark Duplass and the Duplass brothers, and I am very inspired sort of by their creative process on how to use the resources that you have at your disposal to put together a movie and tell your story. I don't, you know, there are a lot of parallels to Creep. I think more so we were inspired by the style in which they made the movie. Barbarian, you know, we actually, I think we're even writing part of this story when Barbarian came out. I think there were a lot of parallels that we were like, I actually think that this is a very similar film. And that kind of excited us. We were like, this is kind of cool. Yeah. We're going to get to put, you know, our own entirely different spin on this. I think the parallels between that and Barbarian, between our film and Barbarian, is that they're just both incredibly unpredictable. When you watch when you watch Barbarian, you have no idea where the hell these stories are going. And that is part of the adventure. That's part of the fun. 20 minutes in, the audience is going to go, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, I definitely did not expect to get a completely new set of characters around 20 minutes into the film. So let's talk about characters a bit. So I've long held that the thing that separates a good horror movie from a great horror movie is how much the audience cares about the characters, which could mean either liking them a lot, like I liked Apollo. I thought he was a cool dude and I wanted to see his story. Or it could mean hating the characters, like I disliked the guy whose name I forget, who was in the section with Apollo. And so I'm curious what techniques you use to get the audience to care about a character and whatever their ultimate fate ends up being. And especially, I'm curious, how does that differ in a film like this, where you're changing up the cast of characters regularly, as contrasted with like a more traditional structure of a film where we follow the same set of characters the entire time?
Yeah, I think that you just have to be extremely tight with that storytelling. And sometimes that means giving a very clear just motivation. Sometimes the character even needs to say, what are you doing this for? And Apollo's character says, I got to pay the rent somehow. You know, why else would he go to this random person's house in the middle of nowhere? He's got to pay the rent. And we also talked a little bit more just as writers about what his motivation would be, so that we know, even though it might not be expressed fully in the film. But I think that is the key to hopefully finding some compassion and care for these characters. And then you give a damn what is going to happen to them 20 minutes or an hour later.
It's also a bit of an exploration as to how sometimes people are just trying to be polite. Yeah. You know, this is a theme in Girl with the Dragon Tattoo that I thought was so brilliant. You know, just someone's invited in, and even though they're a little bit creeped out by the person that's inviting them inside their house, out of politeness, they say yes. And they knowingly put themselves in dangerous situations just because they're afraid to say no or offend somebody and be rude. And so it was a little bit of, Apollo needs the money, and he also it doesn't want to be rude. And Mr. Weems is, Bob's character is very pushy, and he gets what he wants.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I need the money and I don't want to be rude, so I'm going to go into this creepy guy's house is definitely a very classic horror trope. It goes back at least to Dracula. Um, uh, yeah, so another thing that was really interesting about this is since it takes place over several decades, we see a variety of different technology levels in the film. And near the beginning, we have, I think, some Super 8. Is that what?
Exactly. We shot on
Okay.
Super 8.
And you really did shoot on Super 8.
We did.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Great. So
we had a couple rolls of film, and I think the scariest part of the entire movie shoot was making sure we got every shot we needed with about 15 minutes of film.
yeah, wow. I was going to say a couple rolls is less than half an hour or something. That's amazing.
Yeah, we're risk takers. What can I say?
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So I've never shot on Super 8. I know a little bit about it. The rectangle that appears on the left-hand side of the screen sometimes, it's either like solid white or solid black. What's that about?
So it's a sprocket. So it's basically a hole that allows the camera to pull the film one frame at a time through the reel.
Okay.
And when you get your film processed, you can do what's called an overscan, where they actually scan the entire film square, which includes the sprocket, not just the image that you captured.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've definitely seen the sprockets on either side of the of film before, but only ever seen the center part of it develop. So I didn't realize you could. But now that you mentioned it, that makes sense because it's all the same material. Wow. All right. So why choose to use that kind of thing? Talk about a bit about the creative decisions that went into these visual decisions here.
Sure. Well, like you mentioned, the film takes place over 6 decades. So it starts in the 60s and goes until pretty much today. And we thought, one of the best ways to show the progression of time was through a change in technology. So in the 60s, the motivation is the main character, Mr. Weems, has a Super 8mm camera that he's just shooting home videos on. The next part takes place in the 80s, and so we shot on a JVC camcorder. In fact, it's the same exact VHS camcorder that was shot at Back to the Future. That they featured in Back to the Future. It's the red camera that he's holding. And then in the final bit, we shot a little bit on mini DV for the mid 2010s.
That's great. I'd have to rewatch it again in order to see if if I'm able to spot anything in this regard. But I'm curious, are there other visual differences in the parts that are not recorded diegetically, but are instead we're just watching the film and it's all recorded on, I assume, a digital camera?
Yeah, so those sections were shot on the red Komodo.
Okay.
And so we had, at least we had a shorthand between myself and our wonderful DP, Keelan Carruthers, where we would say, okay, are we in cinema mode right now, or are we in found footage mode? And that's sort of how we would communicate.
Yeah, and then I think the other element would be just the set dressing for the house, and that was these were the two main ways that we were trying to convey the passage of time.
Okay.
I guess like the people's fashion, but yeah.
Sure. Creatively, I do think that adding this found footage element and having Super 8mm and practical VHS, it just adds a level of realism that you just can't make up.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to not have a strong opinion about that sort of thing, but then I interviewed Fred Vogel, the director of August Underground, and the final interview. And August Underground, the entire thing is made to look as though it's home movies recovered from a serial killer, and
Wow.
so it's on VHS. And yeah, he did a good job of convincing me that even if you're not going to record it initially on the medium it's supposed to look like, doing an actual transfer to it as opposed to purely trying to make it look that way in with VFX will get you a more legitimate result.
Definitely.
Yeah.
No, that's actually a workflow that I came very close to doing where I was thinking of shooting some bits on regular, digital, like with the Red Komodo, for example, and
Yeah.
then sending that into a lab where they can record that to a VHS tape and then export from the VHS tape back to digital. And that would just give it this very authentic VHS look.
Well, you don't actually need to go to a lab necessarily to do that. It's relatively easy to set up that sort of workflow at home.
Wow. So you must be working on something back there.
Sorry, say that again, please.
I said you must be working on something back there.
Yeah, I have my own projects that I'm working on. But yeah, it's really interesting to me how it's really interesting to me how these older in a technical sense less lower quality, lower fidelity media like Super 8 or VHS and even probably the mini DVD are getting these sort of nostalgic thing going that really seems to be coming to a peak in the present moment, especially VHS. And I'm curious, is that something that you guys are like particularly passionate about, these older recording media, or is that just something you thought, since we're telling a story that takes place over time, this would be an effective thing here?
Sure. Sometimes it's hard to point your finger at something and say why it's creepy, why it has a certain effect on you. But I think I've always thought, shooting on film, shooting on VHS nowadays and watching that back, no matter what you shoot, it does add this very creepy, almost nostalgic feel to whatever you're doing. Part of our wedding was even shot on 8mm, and we watched the footage of our wedding shot on 8mm film, and we actually took the Sinister score and put it underneath our wedding footage. And when we watched that back, it was haunting. Like you would watch this footage and it was mesmerizing. It's as if you're conjuring up all of these images of these horrible things that are about to happen to all of these poor people at this wedding. It's so incredible, the effect that just such a simple, visual gag has on your subconscious.
I posted that video he's talking about on my Instagram. So once we're like wrapping up, I'll put it in the chat so you can at least see it and enjoy the creepiness of our wedding day. Our wedding day was bright and colorful and beautiful, but when it's black and white, or I think there's some color in it, just very creepy.
Yeah. But the colors all desaturated, and especially put the Sinister score underneath. And man, it is.
What's going to happen to those kids?
Yeah, that was something. I've been watching a lot of found footage movies recently, and watching yours, which incorporates these elements of found footage, but is not found footage from beginning to end. One of the things that I noticed that was really different about this from a found footage movie is the use of a score. That a found footage movie is almost always all of the sound is diegetic. There isn't any music overlaid, whereas with this, there is. And so can you talk a bit about working with the composer, how you got the sound that you were looking for to make things as creepy as they were?
Our composer, Robot Disco Puma, actually does all of our short films on YouTube. Wow. And so when I told him, we were making this film, he put together a whole variety of sounds, and that's sort of our workflow with each other, is that I'll describe to him exactly the sound that I'm going for. I'll send him references, and then he'll put together a library for me to pull from, and then I will layer those sounds in on the timeline to my liking, basically. I've noticed that it's it's a much better workflow to be the director, the editor, and then be able to, cherry pick what music you want when, if you just go to a lot of composers, they're going to sort of do what is most obvious and sometimes spoil a scare or give away to the audience, and that a scare is about to happen.
Mhm.
Sometimes you want music in a place that you would think there shouldn't be any. Sometimes you don't want music in a place that you think there should be music. It's
I love
Yeah.
watching him and Robot Disco Puma work together because, you can be, sometimes we're on set and this could be a short film or a feature, and you'll just hear Aaron have an idea and send a voice memo over to Mr. Puma. And his real name is Danny. So Danny is just such a creative, cool, I think like just, I don't want to say more than thinker, but he's just such a creative thinker. He really goes cool places, and you guys have a really good relationship. So they'll just bounce ideas back and forth, and all of a sudden he's sending back a voice memo of something cool that he just conjured up, and Aaron's like a little more of this, a little less that, and it's really fun.
He's one of the few
watch.
composers that just gets weird without me having to tell him to get weird.
Yes.
He just understands the mission and he executes.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. So between the two of you, you're writing, directing, producing, editing. It sounds like doing the sound design largely yourselves. Is there anywhere in your team, apart from getting Robot Disco Kuma to do the composing, where you see like a weakness in yourselves and you need somebody else to take over that role in film production?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, yeah, our DP for one, Keelan Carruthers, is an absolute genius, and the things that he's able to accomplish, with limited resources, is out of this world. I mean, you'll watch the film and think it was, a multi-million dollar production. That really is all because of Keelan.
Mhm.
Our sound design was done by Mike Tran,
Mhm.
and he does the vast majority of sound design in his bedroom, and he has his own 5.1 surround sound system in his room, and when you sit down right next to his bed and watch it, I mean, it rattles the entire house. It's phenomenal.
And then we also have, you can only be so many places at once. You only have the brain bandwidth, no matter how long you stay awake. So for my team, it's really, really nice that I've had PK, Paul Kim on the past couple productions, and Caitlin O'Connor was on a previous production of mine, because they're very organized people. They're always thinking a step ahead. So if there is a small error I missed, or even something as tiny as a costume didn't get ironed and it's going to look like absolute crap and we're about to film, someone like PK or Caitlin has already handled it. So these are people that really step in and fill that in for us on like a lean skeleton team. And then also in the VFX department, we have a nice flow there with Sam. You guys kind of like engineer some of that stuff together too.
Yeah, there's a lot of planning that went into the few visual effects shots that we have. So I don't want to give anything away, but there was one really, really comprehensive VFX shot that we had to execute, no pun intended. And so we practiced in LA. We actually did a test shoot in LA. We sent that to Sam, and then we FaceTimed the day of when we were in Massachusetts, because he was still in LA. And I just showed him the setup. We needed to set up a blue screen and tracking marks. And he really did such a great job just sort of walking us through that entire process.
But it's something we talk about all the time, is like finding your team. There's a reason why a lot of creators work with the same people over and over and over. Maybe they work with them one time and then they don't work with them again. It just wasn't the right fit. But once you do find your people, like hold on to them and cherish them and compliment them, because it really takes everybody's help to see every little thing and help a movie get to the finish line.
It's taken over a decade just to find our film family, as we call it. It just takes a long time to find the right people that are not only talented but just as passionate as you are.
Yeah. Everybody wants their own Dreamlanders to their John Waters. So you said you had a skeleton crew and that the movie looks like it's several $million. I'm curious what you mean when you say skeleton crew, because different people can mean wildly different crew sizes with that. And so and in terms of budget, would you describe this as like a low budget movie, like around a million or less, or are we talking micro budget, where it's like extremely low, 100,000 or so, or?
Right. Yeah. So we're definitely in that indie micro budget realm there. And I think that we kept that in mind with all of the writing as well, because something that I really feel is one of Aaron's strengths is he doesn't try to overextend himself to do more than what we have the resources to do. So knowing the
Wise.
house, that was a huge thing. Having some of the team already be people we worked with in the past who, they're wonderful. We have a really seasoned, oiled machine with them. That's helpful. And then, yeah, just being very realistic with ourselves in the writer's room of like, what can we do? Doing lots of tests with the VFX at home just to make sure that's limited budget that, just we want to make this movie. It's passionate. We believe in this movie. We're going to the finish line. It can still look great for a lean budget. And regarding crew, I mean, sometimes we were only 5. That was on the leanest of days were 5 of us. And then on like probably the most of days when we had some extras on set, we were maybe like 16. Correct me if I'm wrong.
So including cast.
Yeah, including cast, like 16, 17, or in that kind of range. But yeah. And that was like the days where we had some of the kids there on set, which is they were really, really great kids. And at the same time, you want to make sure that they're staying entertained and focused, and it's just a few more moving pieces to handle. But we were very lucky with everyone who came out. It's a really good group out there in Western Massachusetts.
That's great. Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned going back to Los Angeles earlier, which, I mean, a common place for filmmakers to live. But when people that I talk with who are working in this micro budget range, which is almost everyone that I interview, it's rare that they live in Los Angeles. It's much more common that I'll get like I live in rural Louisiana, or I upstate New York, or something like that. And so it's interesting to hear you guys going to that part of the country to film, even though you don't live there anymore. Are you in Los Angeles because you are, trying to work your way up in the film world, as so many others people are?
Yeah, I mean, I would say we both moved out to LA on separate times. We met while we were both living out there. So for me, it was just a dream to live out there for sure. And then the dream blossomed once I was able to enter the film industry. I was like, oh my God, how lucky am I? And so, it's such an interesting conversation, because maybe a decade or two ago, it was like everything, you had to be in LA. And now we can have interviews from, remotely around the world, or we can, you can just really do anything. You don't necessarily have to live in LA, and it is expensive to live there. It is a lot to live there, but I do think that an undercurrent for me is I still do love that city. And there is still that little element of, you never know who you're going to meet and you're going to kind of vibe with, and you're going to kind of just shoot story ideas with, and that might become a new creative partner. And not that I think you're really asking this, but if anyone was curious, you don't necessarily have to live in LA, but I would recommend living wherever creative people are, because that's really cool when you gel with other creative people in your industry.
Especially for horror, it's probably better that you're not in LA.
I think I might know what you mean, but can you go into more detail about that?
Well, I'll just say one thing is that inspired me to be like, I had a call with this fantastic director who I really like last week, and he lives in England. And I'm like, I'm so jealous. Every location you have is scary. And like, what do you mean? And I was like, your house is scary. Like everything is scary. And meanwhile, I was out in the desert. And so it's like the bright, pink light shining at me, not scary at all. I was like, don't worry, it's scary at night.
Yeah, I mean, in LA, the closest you have to an overcast day is a smoggy day. It's a thing, just snowstorm versus pollution.
Yeah, it is interesting. I definitely pay more attention to the horror film industry, which is in many ways distinct from the larger mainstream film industry. And it's really curious. It's interesting insights and about what you have access to in different parts of the world. So it sounds like you guys planned out the shoot really thoroughly before you began. Is there anything that you would have done differently if you knew at the beginning everything that you know now?
Hmm, it's a really good question.
Well, thank you.
Let me see. Do you have an answer? I want to think about mine.
The answer is always yes. There's never.
The question is what?
Yeah,
Let me
yeah.
rephrase. What is the thing?
I will say that there's never been a project that I've watched and been like, did it, nailed it, perfect. I will always just watch, everything I do and think, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. I'm so happy with the things like the shot choice and score and our cast and crew, of course. So there's nothing that I would have done differently there. I think things that we would change, it always just comes down to like writing.
I was gonna say the same.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's rarely ever like a production thing. It's more so just the story that we're telling. And sometimes when you watch something back that you wrote, you're like, oh, I wish that we didn't give this away this soon, or I wish that we created more mystery here in the beginning.
Okay.
Little things like that when you watch it back aren't so little. They actually make a profound difference.
Yeah. And I know that's something that, you're always trying to be better. I'm even taking notes on this release as what I want to do for the next release and so on and so forth. So I don't know how else to fix that other than to just keep trying to get better and learn from, basically ask myself the question that you just asked us so that we can always be like growing and getting better and stronger. But yeah, I mean, the dream is that we just write the perfect thing and everything works out perfectly.
I think that's what sort of galvanizes me to keep moving forward, is this hope that one day I'm just going to make the thing that I intended to make, and it came out exactly how I saw it, and I love it, and I made the movie that I wanted to see. That's
done
the goal.
now. We did it.
Yeah. Are you the types of folks who, when you watch your own material, you get caught up in it, or you just sit there cringing, noticing everything, every little flaw?
I notice every flaw.
I get kind of caught up in it. I've been getting caught up in our work lately, which has been nice for me. Like, he watched me jump over dailies the other night, and he was like, "Did you just jump?" And I was kind of bashful, and I was like,
Yeah, it's
"Yes."
We actually have a workflow, just the two of us, where I'll cut something together, cut a full scene. Actually, in the case of Beezel, I cut the entire movie before even showing it to Victoria.
Yeah.
And the reason is I wanted as unbiased, as objective of a criticism as possible. I didn't want her to see, every little variation of every little scene. I just wanted her to watch the movie for what it was and then give me her feedback.
And it was so nice because time had passed. I hadn't picked up the script since we had wrapped, and he's in there editing, and it's just, weeks and weeks are going by. And so I got to kind of intentionally, as much as I could, kind of forget the script and be like, okay, I want this movie to be as fresh as humanly possible, considering how deep in it I was. So when he screened it, I was so nervous. So I'm about to watch this thing that I really cared so much about. And now here comes the first edit, and they're rough. And you're like, oh gosh, it's a rough. Like, am I going to be more like, what's going to happen? And yeah, I was able to, exactly as you said, get caught up in it. I was very pleased. I was very happy. And I think you were happy watching my reaction.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure you cried, actually.
He really does it. I'll cry a little bit, like, we made this.
Aw, that's great. So you worked with a lot of the people that you worked on this before. You mentioned the cinematographer, but I didn't hear you mention any of the actors, although I might have missed it. Could you tell me about the casting process for the film?
Yeah. Well, let's see. So yeah, you're right. It was an entirely fresh cast for us to work with this time, which was a little bit new territory. We had usually brought back some recurring people across our first feature together, which was Electric Love, and then our second was Val. And I mean, we had such a great time working with those people. It really kind of came down to a little bit of availability, a little bit of getting some of these people out to New England, and then there was this je ne sais quoi of trying new territory with these completely brand new characters and just having a completely fresh look at that for us as creators. So yeah, the casting process was interesting because we have Bob Gallagher coming from the Boston, New York area, like we were saying, and he was such a gem. You know, again, we're on this limited, the micro indie budget. And so you have to stay within these constraints and cast the best of your ability for as close as possible, because as much accommodation you need and travel you need to accommodate for is really adds a layer of challenge. So Bob was a huge godsend to find. I really loved LeJohn's casting story because we were always very upfront that this had to be a local hire. And so when I got LeJohn's tape, I didn't realize that he was, I want to say from Chicago, but his tape
was Ohio.
Was it Ohio? Yeah. Okay, thank you. And he was so strong. He was so amazing that when I found out he was not in the area, I was like, well, I can't, we have to get him. Like, I have to now move mountains because I must get him. And he later that he knew that we were casting locally, but he wanted to submit a tape that was so good that we couldn't say no to him. I said, LeJohn, you did it. Because now, and he was amazing. He also came with some what's the word I'm looking for? Stunt skills, which were required, or it was just really helpful in a few of those little moments that happened towards it in his segment. And then we of course had Caroline, who we were lucky was traveling on the East Coast at the time that we were casting.
And so Caroline is a fellow BU grad.
Yes.
So that's actually how we found Caroline. Is I put out a post on the BU alum mailing list looking for local actresses in the Boston area. And although she was in, I think what you said, North Carolina?
She was in Carolina.
At the time with her family, she flew on up and was able to be in the film.
And then of course there's Nico, who came in from France. And that was really a big thing for us. We knew Nico for several years, but I remember being nervous when we made the offer to him because it's like, Nico's done lots and lots and lots. I mean, everybody has, but Nico he had some pretty cool credits on his list.
He works. He definitely works
a lot. And so I said to Aaron, I was like, what if he says no? He's a friend. What if he passes? But also, you can't think that way. You just have to ask. When you're in this space and you're trying to make something work, you just have to ask. And if someone says no, they do. But he said yes, is the moral of that story.
That's great. Are there any aspects of the film that you would be really eager to talk about that you haven't had a chance to yet?
Well, there are a lot of scenes that we took from our YouTube channel, or rather we were inspired by scenes from our YouTube channel and really just did with, a bigger budget, more resources, used in against the backdrop of a much bigger story where the characters actually have motivations for things. Can you think of any like particular moment that you want to talk about?
I mean, really, I just have such a passion for moments in each of the segments. With I always flip-flop between saying someone's character name or their real name, and I'm like, at least consistently say the character. So Apollo and Mr. Weems, that's a story that I thought was just super, super cool to tell about this man who essentially everyone believed killed his family, but could never be pinned down for the crime. And I was like, I love that story. I love that mystery with him. So that's something that, like, if it was ever possible, I would love to tell a wider story about that. Because I just think there's so much more there to uncover with did he or didn't, like what happened, and really live in that moment. And then there's the middle segment, which was the first thing we shot. And that one was one that we had been kicking around in the concept and writing phase for a while. So I felt really like that one was an old friend. I didn't feel like that was completely new territory with that script. And then the final one was such a cool, probably, at least in this genre, most dramatic thing you and I had written about the woman, this young woman who really wants to have a child with her husband, and then they're having their own conflicts. That was just really, really cool, I think. And we had some fun nightmare sequence scares.
No, I mean, Victoria really went for it. She committed, and I'm lucky that you were just so willing to do the things that I wrote.
Yeah.
Because it was risky, and there's always a chance that it might not work when you shoot it, but I feel confident that it did work out this time.
Well, I have no worries when it comes to him, because he would not write something if he didn't think we could pull it off. And yeah, there was just no question. It was like, am I going to do this? Of course I'm going to do it. So let's get there.
There are a couple of other fun little stories while we were on set. One night, towards the end of shooting at around 2 o'clock in the morning, there was a giant blizzard, so a giant snowstorm, and a massive, probably 40-foot tree branch fell within maybe a couple feet of the house.
Yeah.
It almost landed on the roof.
Like
We're
smashed.
very, very lucky that
Yeah.
the house was not destroyed. We're very lucky that nobody got hurt. But it shook the ground and actually woke up our DP in the middle of the night when it happened. Everybody else walked outside later that morning and were like, holy shit, do you see this? And if you actually look very closely, you will see the tree branch in a couple shots of the film.
Yeah. The snowstorm was its own fun character where it looked amazing on screen, but we are also all living in this house, and you know, you need to feed your cast and crew, and you need, you know, deliveries to be able to happen. You need all of these things. And the snowstorm was like I said, very fun to deal with.
Yeah, it was a blessing and a curse. A blessing in that, you know, more production value. So that was good. A curse in that, you know, maybe Beezel just didn't want us shooting there. I don't know.
Keep us there.
And then lastly, after we wrapped shooting, the house that we shot in was sold by my parents, and they sold it to a couple that later went on to call it the murder house. Because and now that's how it's known in the neighborhood, because we ended up unfortunately leaving some blood stains on the basement floor and on the wall.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
In the spirit of the show must go on, if the tree branch had destroyed the house, how would you have written that into the story?
Ooh.
Well, I would have gotten some nice aerial shots looking from above down into the house.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that would have been safe.
We were filming that, so that would have happened in the opening segment. Then it would have had to have happened during the.
No. This happened towards the end, fortunately.
Yeah, but that was the segment we shot last. It would be.
Yeah, you said you shot it like 2, 3, 1.
2, 3, 1. So then that means Beezel's wrath would have had to have happened in the Apollo. I mean, that could have worked out really nicely because Apollo is trying to leave. He's being poisoned. I don't want to give too much away on that in that note, but yeah, then Beezel's otherworldly power knocks down this tree branch. And I mean, there's just so much we can do, especially with how it would have looked so destructive inside. Where the branch fell was like a whole wall of glass. So that would have been really like a devastation on camera. You would have really felt her destruction there.
I'm just conjuring up a scene right now that we could have done where Mr. Weems just invites Apollo into the house, and instead of just opening up the door and letting him in, they have to bushwhack through this giant branch before they even get to the front door.
There's a question that I always like to leave off with, which is, where do you see the future of independent film going?
Would you like to begin? All right, I'll take it. No, you go.
I do. I see the future. I mean, this is sort of, you know, been happening for a long time now, that filmmaking is becoming a lot more accessible to people. So, yeah. You know, we've all heard a million times someone saying that you can shoot a movie on your iPhone. That's 100% true. So I think, you know, I hope, because I try to be optimistic about everything. I hope that with more accessibility comes a greater emphasis on story. I think, you know, hopefully we will see an end soon to, you know, sequel after sequel or reboot after reboot, and hopefully we will start to see more original storytelling. Because anybody in the world is able to make a movie. Anybody can shoot on their iPhone, edit on their computer, on their laptop. They can do their own visual effects. Ultimately, what makes a movie great is the writing. And that's something that, you know, just can't be faked. You know, you can't do, at least as of now, you can't go into Claude AI and just say, write me a good script. You know, you have to put the work in to actually tell a really good story.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was pretty much going to say something very, very similar, which is, as filmmaking becomes so much more accessible and really anyone can go out there and make a movie, I think that through trial and error, those newer filmmakers are going to realize, like, cool, I went out and I did it, but it's not quite working. And, you know, or maybe it does, but in most cases, it's not always going to work. And then they will look back to the story and the script, because there's so much fun that can be had there. You don't need a gigantic budget to tell a really cool, contained story. And like, sometimes it's actually really, really awesome to put yourself in that creative box of the limitations and just rock it and like find the cool way you can tell that contained story. So yeah, I love a good story, and I would just love to see this new wave of filmmakers just knock it out of the park, like crush it.
Yeah. Spoken like a pair of screenwriters. I like it. So one last question that I did want to ask, where does the name Beezel come from? It makes me think of Beelzebub.
Exactly it.
All right, then.
You're on the good track then. Yeah, when we were crafting Beezel's design and her whole lore, we worked around with some different permutations of the spelling, but ultimately Beezel was baked off of Beelzebub. And then there's also this like crunchiness, like she kind of sounds like beetle, and it just felt like when you say, you don't really feel like you said something happy. You feel like you said something kind of like mean. And that's how I felt when I put the name down, and I was like, I think this could work. This could totally work.
Icky. There's just certain words that just, when you say it, it just
doesn't feel
icky.
nice.
You don't know why.
Yeah.
But Beezel is one of them.
And then when our cast would say it back to us, they're like, because remember the spelling wasn't always as easy as it was now. There was like an A in there at one point. It changed a little bit. Some of the people would be like, so wait, is it this? Is it that? And when they would say it to me, I would be like, it's Beezel. Yeah, that works. That works.
Awesome. So this interview is not going to be published until people can watch Beezel. So where should they watch it?
Well, Beezel will be available on all video on demand starting September 24th. And possibly still, depends on when this is released, but possibly still it's limited theatrical starting September 20th.
Okay. I don't know what you mean when you say all video on demand, because like, I don't think it will be available on all video on demand. I mean, do you mean transactional video on demand or like
where you can rent or purchase? So that includes Apple TV, that includes iTunes, Amazon,
and then there's all those other smaller, like when you have cable, like I remember Comcast, and I remember those channels, cable channels. You could go on the remote. I don't know why I feel like I'm saying like ancient words right now.
We still use remotes.
We still use them, but once I started cable, I was like, "What am I saying?" But yeah, I rented movies on demand from the remote. So,
okay, yeah. So actually, now you've got me curious. I'm curious to hear a bit more about why you chose that distribution method. And you said there's a limited theatrical run, and a lot of people that I interview also put their stuff on AVOD or advertising supported video on demand, like Tubi. But it sounds like you're not doing that.
I think that, so I want to make sure I'm correct in what I'm saying, because that's a little bit more on like our distributor team, the Dread Presents wheelhouse. But my best knowledge of that is that you can also do things in waves. So you can start with theater and then VOD, and then you can always move into an SVOD, which would be streaming, or the AVOD that you're referencing.
Right.
And yeah, I think it just kind of depends on that team's inside intel on the best way to unleash Beezel in the world.
Yeah, well, after the VOD window, it will certainly be streaming somewhere. We just don't know where yet.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And if I may nitpick some language, just because I want a consistent model of what all of this means in my head, I believe all of these things are streaming. All of these things are video on demand. The three main categories, AVOD, SVOD, and TVOD. TVOD, which is what you're doing now, is transactional video on demand, where people pay a certain amount of money to rent or purchase the video, which they then stream. SVOD is subscription, not streaming. All of these are streaming. SVOD is subscription video on demand, which is things like Netflix or Hulu, where you create an account and you pay a monthly fee in order to access as much stuff as you want. And then AVOD, advertising video on demand, is things like Tubi, where you watch it without an account and without paying anything, but they show you ads.
Yes, I need you around whenever I'm saying this, because I agree. It's like streaming or subscription. You're right.
Yeah, no, I didn't know any of these things until I started interviewing people, and then I've learned so much, and it's great. Fantastic. So now, as we sign off, please plug your YouTube channel, any other social media, or the official website, anything like that that you would like to direct people to.
Wonderful, thank you. Well, you can find other scary work from the two of us on Social House Films, which is available on YouTube. We put original short horror films out there pretty regularly. And we're both available on Instagram. And then Beezel does have her own Instagram page. She's birthed in the world without us, Beezel Film on Instagram. So you can check her out there as well.
That's great. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming on and talking with me.
Thanks for having
you for
us.
having us.